I could move straight on now to Emma, who in a recent Southwest Screeney bulletin there was a call for films. Emma's looking for short films, and that's how I discovered the North Devon Movie Bus. Over to Emma.
Thank you very much. My experience with archive material is far more limited than Trevor and Tom, but we are running a fairly unique project, which started, I suppose, about 7 years ago, really, when some friends of ours discovered this very peculiar vehicle in a field in Essex, buried up to its axles in mud. And they discovered somehow that this was a mobile cinema from the 1960s, and it's a very strange looking vehicle. It's got a sort of perspex dome above the cab, which makes it look sort of retro-futuristic. There's probably a picture of it in the gallery there. It was in a very, very bad state. But they left a note under the windscreen wiper and said, if you ever want to sell this, give us a call. And they got a phone call 2 years after they left that note. My partner bought it for them. He was a visual arts student, and he wanted to run a mobile cinema, and he was a vintage vehicle enthusiast. So this was like a marriage made in heaven, or hell, as I sometimes thought over in the next 5 years when we were restoring it. And so it took us 5 years to restore. It's now in pristine condition, and then we have a 22-seat cinema inside the vehicle. There you go. So it's got a very sort of traditional cinematic feel. And at some point during the restoration, it was actually the North Devon Museum, which is where I'm from. Then they put together a project which was funded mostly by Southwest Screen, UK Film Council, and it was an archive film project. So the proposal was that we would take this cinema round to the rural areas in North Devon, and we would screen archive film of North Devon to the local community. And most of the material that we've been using has come from the Southwest Film and TV Archive down in Plymouth. I go down there about once every sort of 2 or 3 weeks and trawl through the vaults and look at all sorts of bits and pieces, and we've put together 6 films so far that are each 20 minutes long. There will be 8 films done over the course of the project, which I'm working on the last 2. And we take them around to the villages, and we open our doors, and we don't charge an entrance fee. We go to schools, we go to communities, and the response has been absolutely fantastic. The material, the way that we've sort of put the films together, I decided, because I'm project managing the project as well as being involved in the bus, which means I'm overworked generally, and I also bite off more than I can chew regularly, as with this. So I took on all the film editing as well, even though I didn't know how to edit until a year ago. I decided that the best way to approach it for the purposes of this was just to let the archive film speak for itself, because the images, especially when it's of the local area and when people have got a connection to it, it's so powerful. And all you have to do is turn on your TV and look at the programming schedule for any evening now to see how much thirst there is for it. There's whole channels devoted to it. There's every night it seems that there's an archive film program on TV, so it's been great. And we edited together a compilation of clips of certain areas or to do with certain subjects. And we put music on top of that, which is silent. Some of it is from the old TV archive, so some of it's got someone speaking in it. The earliest film that we've got is 1898, which is from Swifter, and that was a very intrepid filmmaker in 1898 who strapped himself to the boiler of the train going from Barnstaple to Ilfracombe with a hand-cranked camera and filmed the entire journey from the front of the train. The latest film we've got is from about 1989, and that's of the gales and massive destruction, and all of it. People just tap into it and really relate to it. Most of our audience is from the over sort of over 55s, but we do get people from all age ranges. And it's been interesting because, I mean, our main portal is this website. We have produced lots of leaflets and things like that, but at the beginning I realised that we were never going to be able to put out a full programme, because we're doing something like 50 different events over the course of the 9 months or so the project's active. So I put the sort of programme up on the website and signpost people to that. But it's interesting because so many things are sort of internet driven now. We live in this very internet conscious age, but for our audience, who are, a lot of them are older, I've been really surprised at how many people either don't have the internet or aren't competent in using the internet or confident in using the internet. So it's interesting because we're in a sort of transitional period, I think, with this, because a lot of archives are being put onto the internet now, and there's a lot of things like the Pathé archives which you can access. But a lot of the people that we get for our projects are people, you know, they read about us in the local paper and they come along and they've never looked at the internet in their lives and it terrifies them. So it's interesting, interesting times, because I think in 10 or 20 years that's all going to change probably, because I can't imagine the generation that's growing up now won't be confident in the internet. But yeah, it's been. I mean, we've probably had about 5,000 people through the doors so far, and we've got another we're 2/3 in. I think we've got another 3 months to go or something like that. It really brings the community together, and we have these whole villages turn up, and I think because of the sort of unique nature of the space. First of all, we get people that just talk to each other inside the cinema that never spoken to each other before, and it's a really heartening kind of thing and not something you would probably see in Cineworld happening. And secondly, because it's such a literal, unusual vehicle that we're delivering this in, we get a lot of people who wouldn't come in and watch an archive film normally, but they're like, I just want to go in there because it's really weird, and I want to watch something. And they come in and they see the material and they love it. They engage so well. And that goes for schools as well. You know, we get these groups of young kids, and they all pile in, and you think, okay, well, this is black and white, it's silent, it's challenging, it's not HD, and we haven't had a single group that hasn't just really engaged with the material, been very well behaved, and you know, I think it's been a really positive kind of thing on that level. The sort of future of it, we're going to be running this project up until April 2011, and that's when our funding for this particular project dries up. But we are going to be filming a series with the BBC, and they're going to be taking us around the whole country. Melvyn Bragg is going to be presenting, and we're going to be screening archive material from both the regional film archives and the BFI. And that's going to be go out on BBC Two next year, so we're very excited about that. But yeah, it's interesting. So
she's fabulous. Have you given it a name?
No, we haven't actually. No.
She's just wonderful to sit in, and yeah. I caught up with you at Encounters Festival. So you were over in front of the Arnold Feeney Gallery. And there's one lady who'd gone in, and she said, I've seen some things in Bristol, she said, but this is the best thing I've ever seen. People just fall in love.
Yeah.
And you were recently given a Bauhaus projector, so have you got plans to refurbish that?
Yeah, because when we first got the vehicle, the dome, the very strange dome, we have no idea why they did it, because it's basically the projectionist's booth, and if any projectionist, I'm sure, if you put them in a greenhouse basically and said, there's your projectionist booth, I think they would probably scream. I did used to have blinds, which we've got to replace. We have digital projecting equipment because everything had been completely stripped and ruined when we got hold of the vehicle. So our projector is actually inside the body of the vehicle because the throw is completely different. But there used to be a 60mm Bell and Howell projector in the booth, and we've just acquired. We've been given the same make and model, so we're going to put that back in, so we can screen 60mm film, which would be exciting. And we have got some of the old films that they used to screen in there, and they're fantastic. For about 10 minutes, they're all these sort of B-movie actors who are pretending to be factory managers, and they're very Chumley Warner, and they're going, "So, Roger, how can we manufacture this gasket more cheaply?" Because I'm not sure. I said these used to go around factories, and it was the whole white heat era, and they were trying to streamline British production techniques, so that it was all about sort of British production. So yeah, that's that basically.
Yeah. Okay.
I just want to say I'm absolutely chuffed to bits you've done what you've done, because my granddad was involved in the original project.
Oh, really?
He worked on this, and he used to tell us as a kid at the cinema that he put on a bus, and we wouldn't believe him.
Yeah.
And he also produced a lot of the films that were shown. He worked with the BBC to do the training programmes.
Oh, fantastic.
So I'll tell him what you've done. I've got a leaflet to give him, so he'll be tickled to bits.
I would love to hear we would love to hear his stories, because we had very little knowledge when we started about the history of these things, and it's got a bit more profile. It's been on the news a couple of times. We've had people coming to us and saying, "I used to drive these, and I'd be really, really interested."
His interest was the film production. He used to direct a lot of the work that was on the manufacturing side, so he worked for the government to try and encourage production to increase after the war. That was his job.
Yeah.
And that was one of the ideas they had. And a lot of the work he did, we've got copies of somewhere. So.
Oh, really? What's your phone number?
That's good. It's cheered me up completely seeing that back now. So thank you.
Andrew, did you have a question?
Yeah, it may be interesting if you know somebody who's still alive, but it strikes me from a design point of view.
Yeah.
It strikes me, and I don't know how, you'll have to look into this and check it out, but that looks like the rear gun turret from a Lancaster.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons, you can then project outside of the bus.
Yeah.
If need be. So at some point it may be in the design process they intended mass screening outside.
Yeah.
But it's not based on the West German or East German or Russian model of their cinema vans, because they had, as part of sort of mass education programs, and they had similar East German and Russian constructivists actually showing film like that.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting thought about the time actually they're projecting out. So we don't know, but we've not heard if they ever did that. But
it looks very similar to the rear gunner position of it.
Yeah. Yeah, we've heard, a few people said that. The company that built it was called Coventry Steel Caravans, and they specialised in bending perspex. They used to build caravans in the 1940s for people like the Shah of Persia and the Queen Mother, and they had these formed perspex kitchens. So our kind of assumption is that they were just kind of showing off what they could do, especially because they were showcasing modern British production techniques, and therefore they were saying, "Look at us, aren't we wonderful? This is what we can do."
Does anybody else have any questions for for Tom maybe, or no? Can I dive in with one then? Tom, in terms of what sort of format are you interested in kind of receiving material on at the moment? Is a DVD, kind of sufficient for you?
Yes, a DVD is sufficient for us, and clearly there are issues of preservation, migration forward, and the rest.
Yeah.
Preservation servers are what ultimately we would probably be using to preserve digital media, but a DVD is absolutely sufficient. Yes.
And I was really interested to hear that in that piece you didn't edit the.
No, I mean that Reg was a bit exceptional. He was a very good amateur, and nobody taught him anything. But you can see the evolution of his skills in the films that he made. Starting with one which simulated an air raid in his parents' house, so they were all going up the stairs and things. But he just turned out to be pretty good. Any pictures we've got of him make him look like a tax inspector.